She's not what you'd expect. She's tough and feisty, but gentle and tender. She makes millions and gives millions to the poor. She cries, she laughs, she teaches, she comforts. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
Hi, I'm Dani Johnson. Welcome to the Dani Johnson Show. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today, we're still in January. And in January, we're in the first month of the year, a brand new year, a chance to redesign your life the way you want to live it this year. Rather than repeating 2017, why not perhaps look at what you liked about 2017 and maybe what you didn't and how you would like to live it for 2018. Around here on the Dani Johnson Show, every single day we are bringing you content to challenge you and press against you on the way that you're living. Asking yourself the question, am I living it according to my design or am I living it according to somebody else's design? That's exactly where Tony found himself. He found himself completely stressed out in a high-paying, high-pressure job, living according to keeping up with the Joneses, with all the materialistic things surrounding him, and yet found himself far more in debt than he ever needed to be, away from his family more hours than he wanted to be, and not being able to do the things that he actually really wanted to do. Yes, money is important, but is it everything? Tony Gray, a father, a husband, a hard-working man in the marketplace, had the courage and humility to ask himself the question, is this really the way I want to be living it? Is this all that there is, or is there more? I challenge you today as you hear Tony Gray's story that perhaps you might also ask yourself the same question and that you might join us on redesigning your life. That you may challenge the status quo of success and you might learn to define success for you and live it according to your rules, according to your expectations and not the expectations of anybody else. Help me welcome Tony Gray to the Dani Johnson Show. So Tony, when you first heard about DaniJohnson.com, what was your life like?
My life was a little out of control. I just finished a financial program to learn about debt annihilation, but this was after coming off of a second bankruptcy. So,
how much did you guys declare bankruptcy for the second time?
Ooh, yeah, that was a doozy. Wow, 40,000, 60. With the house that we had built and customized everything after it was built and ripped everything out. Close to about 700,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you guys are facing declaring bankruptcy again.
Yes.
And so you got one of those programs that a lot of people get a hold of.
Yes.
Right? And you're looking at that program. What led you to us?
Well, a friend of ours got the First Steps to Wealth book, and they had went to First Steps to Success in Orlando, and they invited us to come, and I was really not into it at the time, again, just coming off of the other program. So just my curiosity, I actually happened to watch Spiritual Equipping, and I was like, something's different. So when they came back, they were excited, and they wanted us to come to Dynasty. And the prerequisite of Dynasty is First Steps. So instead of going to Orlando, I flew out to Long Beach and then flew out to LA for that Dynasty. So, and I've been here ever since.
So at the time, you were working how many hours?
Easy, average about 75.
75 hours a week, and you were making tons of money.
Yes.
Okay, and what were you doing for a living?
I was an operations manager for a very large corporation, one of the largest in the world, and it's really had a lot of jobs, but really operations, sales, service, so they were all tied together.
Now, how long had you been with them?
9 years.
9 years. And then let's go back a little bit further in your background. You and Mia have been together for how long?
22 years. It would be 23 years in May.
And you guys met when you were how old?
10, 11.
And then you guys actually got together in the 8th grade.
Yes.
And even conceived a child.
Yes, that
in
she
the
lost.
that she lost. So she conceived a child. So he knocked a girl up in the 8th grade. Which is amazing to me. So to me, like, okay, so you guys were like the teen pregnancy.
We were.
Right? And then for you to be able to work yourself up into corporate America and one of the largest corporations in the world, it's phenomenal to me. Did you go to college?
I went, but I met a millionaire. My first business mentor, he told me, by the time you were 19, if you listen to me, kid, you'll be making more money than
if you go to college.
Yes.
Yeah. And so did you take his advice?
I did.
You did.
And by the time I was 19, I was making $40,000. So back then, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, it really was. Okay, so how many kids do you guys have?
3.
3 kids. And you guys started off making babies at 13?
Yes.
Okay. So therefore, like, the childhood part of your life certainly was not conducive to becoming an operations manager for a huge corporation.
It was not. No.
Not at all.
No.
Like, you guys were a part of every wrong statistic like me.
Yes.
Yes.
My dad was a drug addict my entire life. My stepdad was great, but he was always at work. So, my mom and my stepdad, I learned my work ethic from them.
It's awesome.
But he was always on the road, so he was never home. So.
Okay, so you started off in life pretty young and learning from somebody that was really successful. So a millionaire taught you a bunch of stuff that then helped you to build this great career. And so then you found yourself doing what most people in corporate America do, and that is keeping up with the
Joneses.
Yeah, so tell me about that. What did that look like?
Well, I came up in a prosperity church, so...
wow, that's perfect.
Yes. Name it and claim it. Money cometh, all of those things I was taught. I learned a lot about faith, but I didn't learn what to do with money. I didn't learn money truly had an assignment, and that it didn't always come, that you had to plan. So definitely kept up with the Joneses. I remember one house, the house that for the second bankruptcy was brand new. We ripped out all of the carpet. Brand new house.
So it had brand new carpet.
Yeah, ripped out brand new carpet. Had some imported tiles, so I had hardwood floors throughout the whole house, custom tile. So yeah.
So okay, so here you are. You're working for corporate America. You have the most outrageous job that a guy could ask for. You're making great money. You are working 75 hours a week, which is more than Were you happy working 75 hours a week?
It depends. In hindsight, no, but I know because I was struggling with my relationship that I found peace at work because I can control that situation. And what, young marriages.
Especially when you start out at 13.
Yes. So you have challenges that you really don't know how to work through. So, but as I got older and I realized that I was missing a lot of time with my kids, it really started to hit me then.
Okay, so there you are. You've got the big job with the big title. You're making the big paycheck. You're working the big hours. You got the big houses.
Yes.
Not just one, but you bought at least 2.
5.
Okay. So then you hear about DaniJohnson.com through the spiritual equipping, right?
Yes.
So that was airing live from a First Steps to Success. Why would you come?
Because I was always hungry. I wanted more out of life. I knew there had to be more. And it kind of run its course with me in the whole religious thing. I was 19 years in that particular church. And I just got tired of hearing about, your jets, your cars, and all that stuff. I learned some foundational stuff. However, I just knew it had to be more. I just saw so many people hurting who was trying to keep up with the Joneses. So many families who were really putting on a facade. And it's like I didn't want to be that family. And I knew that if we didn't make changes that I wouldn't be married today. And I really didn't know what my future held for my children and future generations. So I knew something had to change.
So now, you declared bankruptcy once, you declared it twice. When did it dawn on you that what you guys were doing and what you were learning wasn't working?
It was when I first went to First Steps to Success.
Really?
Yes. Because there was a different perspective offered. I never heard a millionaire say, hey, I don't buy the name brand this.
That's right.
And that just blew my mind. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't buy the name brand? Like, are you kidding me? And then the whole status thing. It's like, really had me reevaluate what was really important in life.
Mm-hmm. So prior to First Steps, what was important to you was what?
Stuff.
Making
sure that my kids had, because I grew up poor. So I wanted to make sure that my kids never wanted for anything. Mm-hmm. I did pretty good at that, but then it became excessive. Mm-hmm. I remember at one point when I really knew it was bad, we had about 5 game systems in the house because I needed my own. And I didn't want to share with the kids, so they needed theirs. So it was now buying multiple $60 games for the same, system. So I had the money, so.
And Daddy doesn't want to share.
Correct.
But you're going to teach your kids how to share. No, wait, you didn't teach your kids how to share.
I didn't.
You bought them their own thing.
Yes.
Because you thought that was the right thing.
Yes, I thought, giving them monetary things was what a father was supposed to do, because my stepdad went out, he worked. He made sure, to the best of his ability that we were provided for. And I wanted to make sure that my kids never grew up hungry. Never had to worry about food, anything like that. So that was my main driver. I really didn't have vision beyond making sure that my kids had a better life than I did. Okay,
so your relationship with your wife, Mia, was struggling.
Oh, yes.
So you're working 75 hours a week. You're spoiling your kids rotten. You're spoiling your wife rotten. And yet the relationship sucks.
Right.
Why?
We didn't know each other.
Like, how could you say that? Like, somebody listening right now, like, wait a second, you guys, conceived a child at 13. How did you not know each other? You've been together more than your
whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. 10 years shy of your entire life. Yes. You guys have been together that long.
Yes. Well.
30 years.
Yes. It was really, we entered into a physical relationship because we both were hurting. We didn't know that. Yeah. So that was the driver in our relationship. Great sex. And loyalty. I will say that, to be so young getting married, because there were times where I was propositioned by the women.
Of course, in corporate America.
Oh, yeah.
And the high level position that you had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know it at times because I was so naive to think that stuff doesn't happen, but it really does. But just that loyalty, you know what? She's a fighter, I'm a fighter. We're not going to quit. So even though we didn't truly know each other intimately like we should have, that was the bond that really kept us together, not wanting to be the statistic.
Yeah, right. So fighting against what society actually said what you guys would be.
Yeah, because we heard from day one that we wouldn't make it.
Yep.
And most people are shocked to this day that, like I said, really 30 years that we are still together.
Yeah, no, and that really is shocking. All right, so I don't know if you found yourself in the same position where Tony has been. Come on, he did everything right. Come on, he's the kid that didn't grow up with a lot of stuff. He grew up poor, grew up in a broken home, and then ends up, knocking a girl up when he's 13 years old, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. So ends up beating the odds and doing exactly what society said success looked like. What did it look like? Yeah, climbing the high-power corporate ladder, making a ton of money, working a lot of hours, spoiling your kids rotten, spoiling your wife rotten, spoiling yourself rotten, ending up with, $700,000 worth of debt that you're needing to declare bankruptcy on, not once, but twice. Wait till you hear what has happened to Tony since. This is Dani Johnson. We'll continue with more after this.
If you think Tony's story is wild, grab your popcorn. The best part is coming up next on The Dani Johnson Show. More resources, more training, more results. The DaniJohnson.com Insider Membership is your ultimate success shortcut. Get exclusive access to reports, videos, audios, ebooks, cheat sheets, and other training for your personal and professional life. This is truly DaniJohnson.com's best kept secret. Become an Insider member today and get on the fast track to success.
Imagine living in a decrepit, unsafe hovel made of waste material on top of old mining tunnels that could explode and sink your home at any moment. Imagine no water to drink, no safe place to raise your children, no food for your starving baby. Imagine that your kids can't learn to read because they have to work to support the family instead of going to school. Could you imagine living in that kind of fear and hopelessness? This is exactly what families are dealing with in the poverty-stricken village of Santa Pancha, Nicaragua. These families can barely meet their basic food, water, and housing needs. We are transforming that village. Be a part of this miracle. I want you to go to the website now and learn how you can help. Go to kingsransom.org and click on Santa Pancha. There you can join with other warriors against poverty and help bring a miraculous transformation to Santa Pancha. That's kingsransom.org, kingsransom.org.
Did you know you can take the Dani Johnson Show with you wherever you go? It's never been easier to stay up to date with the latest content from Dani with the DaniJohnson.com app. Watch or listen in the car, at the gym, or on the go. Download it now from the App Store and Google Play and never miss a show again. Your family, business, and bank account will thank you.
Hi, I'm Dani Johnson. The most common question I get usually are from people who are trying to juggle their life. They've got kids who are involved in all kinds of activities. They've got business or their job, finances, trying to get out of debt, plus all their church activities and all the volunteer activities. And they're pulling their hair out going, how do I juggle this all? Man, I once lived just like that until I learned Time Secrets. Time Secrets showed me how to be able to cut my hours from 100 hours a week that I was working down to 20 hours a week and tripled my income as a direct result with what I learned. Time Secrets also showed me how to get my priorities in order, which healed up my marriage. And I became a mother that I was proud of versus becoming the mother I didn't want to be. And so if you feel like your world is running around in all kinds of different circles, you can fix that. Call 888-757-8880. Again, 888-757-8880 for Time Secrets.
Faith, hope, love, and sometimes a good swift kick. You'll find them all here. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
So there you are. You might be married to the Tony, or you might be the Tony who's worked hard to beat the odds, grew up in every bad statistic, and was completely determined to make sure that his kids did not end up in those statistics as well. So, yeah, met his wife when they were 10, conceived their first child at 13. Unfortunately, that resulted in a miscarriage, and then ended up getting married very young, having 3 children, climbing his way to the corporate ladder, making tons of money, buying everything there is to buy, keeping up with the Joneses, you know? Right here on the Dani Johnson Show every single day, we're bringing you stories and content to challenge you. Are you on the right path? Are you doing really what you were designed to do? Or are you doing what society, whether even it's church in your case, right? So it's church and society now pressing against, if you come from that kind of a church that's giving you the prosperity message and telling you to name it and claim it and believe for your jet, but first pay for the pastor's jet. The bottom line is that he found himself following both of those paths and ending up with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, miserable in a marriage, and really thinking, am I really doing what I should be doing? So you came to First Steps. What happened since?
I want to give my wife credit. She was really, she was all in from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. It was a process for me, scaling back stuff like cable and just things. But as a result, we've paid off $660,000 in 5 years. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's been an amazing ride. We've been able to travel on different mission trips for the last 5 years, from Belize to Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, continue to give all over the world to great causes. And we've traveled more in the last 5 years than we have in probably the last 15.
Wow. So when you had all that money and you had that huge mortgage and you had all that stuff, you weren't doing what you really wanted to do.
No, we did, the typical 2-week vacation every year. We made sure that, we took the kids on vacation, but we really weren't living life by design.
Right.
It was truly, it's funny that Donald Trump's president now because I was on his plan. Like, you know what? Just make money, mess up, file bankruptcy. So I thought that was normal. So he knew.
Yeah. So then let me ask you this. So the difference between your life back then and your life today, because somebody might be listening like, oh gosh, I don't think I could do that. I don't, so what? I'd rather have the big fancy house than go on a mission trip. What has drawn you to wanting to travel around the world? What has drawn you to wanting to help people that cannot help themselves? What has drawn you to want to live more simple versus the other way?
I've been given great, resources and truly responsibility. I've seen how the truly poor live.
Yes.
And I know in the United States, we think that we're poor, but when you have shelter and when you have means to change your situation, it's different than when a government is oppressing the people so that they cannot get out of their situation. So I really, God's given me a heart for just, the underdog. And, I've been an underdog my whole life. So, I'm fancy myself as a champion of those, the brokenhearted, the forgotten about children. And, that means something to me to be able to impact a child's life where, when they didn't dream, now that they dream again. When they see that, you're helping make this possible. To see, orphans go off to college where, I'm all for it. I'm all for. So my motivation has changed where I'm not about making money for myself. I'm about, being a blessing to other people, making sure that we leave a mark on this world that it's better than it was given to us. So,
Yep.
And that's been, thanks to First Steps to Success. It truly has blessed and transformed my family. All my kids have been through, even foster kids have been through First Steps, and they are better off now than, prior to going to First Steps. That, doing well in school, the little ones who are still in school. My youngest daughter, she actually graduated a year early, and
Wow.
They're doing phenomenal. So it's all, attributed to getting a focus, getting somebody to believe in you, and showing you that you need to have a bigger vision than what you think is
the status quo of success, honestly. Everything that some churches are selling us and everything that, of course, society is teaching us. But, that might be good for somebody. But the bottom line is why are you here? You were knitted together in your mother's womb with a plan and a purpose in mind, with a destiny that's calling out of you. He found his. What about you? This is Dani Johnson. We'll continue with more right after this.
Be sure to tell a friend about the Dani Johnson Show. It just might be the key to the breakthrough they need. Stay right here for more of the Dani Johnson Show.
This is your chance. This is your shot. Get your copy of War on Debt right now. There's one waiting for you that has your family's name on it. And inside that package is freedom. Your family's freedom is on the inside of that package. All you have to do is open it up, press play, and start applying what I teach you in this program. 888-757-8880. You and I are going to help your family become completely debt-free in the next 5 to 7 years. Just imagine how that's going to feel.
Did you know you can see Dani Johnson live and in person? Go to DaniJohnson.com and find out about our next live event. First Steps to Success. Register today. Call 866-760-8255 or go to DaniJohnson.com/FSTS.
Prior to plugging into DaniJohnson.com, I was working 60 to 75 hours a week. I was completely stressed out. I was incredibly angry with my husband. We were in over $350,000 worth of debt. By applying the strategies that Dani teaches, in the last 3.5 years, we have paid off $170,000 in debt. We are no longer roommates, and we no longer spend every single cent that we make. We now have made tens of thousands of dollars in passive income in investments. We are on the right track. We're traveling around the world together, and we are building homes for those who really need it. So I don't know about you, but if you want to cut back from 60 to 20 and 30 hours a week, if you want to mend some relationships, if you want to make your life more efficient and a lot more fun, and you want to be the best version of you, I highly recommend that you get registered because your life is about to change.
Prior to plugging into DaniJohnson.com, first steps to success in creating dynasty, my wife and I were really lost. We were struggling in a relationship. We were struggling financially, drowning in debt. Our relationship was really broken. We were in a bad place. We were living in two completely different states and not really honoring each other. Once we got plugged into the community, we noticed a shift in our lives. Most importantly, we came together as a husband and wife. That was the first thing we did. And when we finally came together under the same roof, things started to change. Over the past 3 years, we've been able to pay off over $495,000 in debt. I know in my business, I've had a job created for me that increased my income by 50%. That has actually opened up the door to allow my wife and I to spend more time with each other. So I don't know where you are. I don't know if your relationship is super awesome. I don't know if your job is immaculate. I don't know if you're debt-free. But what I do know is if you're not any one of those things, your next step is to get plugged into DaniJohnson.com, go on the website, get plugged into the community. I promise you, your life will never be the same.
And prior to plugging into DaniJohnson.com, I was a broke college student, drowning in debt, and I felt like the world was crashing all around me, and I had bad relationships. Since plugging into DaniJohnson.com and First Steps to Success, I was able to pay off $6,600 in 4 months. Now I'm able to give 10% of my income to wherever my heart desires. I actually, using the skills that I learned from Dani, I actually landed a job before I graduated college, and I'm able to travel the world. All I know is if you're serious about annihilating your debt, traveling the world, helping people, and having fun doing so, I highly recommend you get registered for the next First Steps to Success. Do it now, don't wait, don't even thinking about it. If you're ready to change your life, just do it.
We went to our first ever First Steps to Success just 10 weeks ago, and it has definitely been life-changing ever since.
We felt like we got hit by a 2x4, but it was the best 2x4 because what we realized is that our priorities were clearly out of line. I had been building a home-based business and had been working 80 to 100 hours, and I realized that that is not my role and that I had actually taken my husband's, and it was that realization that something had to change, and we immediately went home and changed everything. There was no hesitation. We said, you know what, we need to be obedient to God.
And we've implemented the tools day one. We started implementing what Dani taught us, invested in ourselves, invested in our kids, got our priorities in line. We've now actually paid off just not quite $60,000 in debt and looking at a couple more investments here as head of the household.
It's been absolutely incredible. So I just encourage you, if any of this speaks to you, if you're wanting to get out of debt, if you're wanting better communication, if you're wanting to elevate to the higher level of life, get to First Steps to Success and plug into DaniJohnson.com.
What multimillionaire do you know that volunteers their time to help ordinary people like you and me? There's only one. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
So I know that you were just inspired by Tony Gray's story. Man, can you believe that? $660,000 worth of debt paid off in 5 years, restored his marriage, no longer living according to stuff and being ruled by the status quo of success. Joining me now is David Cooke with another story that is also going to inspire you and why. Friend, we just started a new year. This is the first month of the year. And this show is about you defining success for you. You living it according to your rules, your design, how you were knitted together in your mother's womb. There's a plan and a purpose for your life. Your job is to find it, to discover it, to walk in it, to live it out, and to live your life by design instead of by living it by default. I promise you, all the outside forces outside of this show is marketing to you constantly for you to step right in line with 98% of the population who ends up dead or dead broke at the age of 65, dependent on their family, friends, and federal government for their main source of income, many of which are on the path of what they think is the path of success. They've been spoon-fed a lie, duped into believing that stuff is success. A big mortgage is success. Leases on 1 or 2 or 3 cars is success. Spoiling your kids rotten is success. And then let's add the bad health to it, the bad marriage, the sexless relationship. Both parties hugging the sides of the bed. All the debts that have piled up, the stress from it all. But let's just put on a pretty face when we go to church on Sunday because God has blessed me and everything is good. But deep down inside, you know it's all a mess and you're looking for a new way. David Cooke joins us today. David, welcome to the Dani Johnson Show.
Thank you for having me on. Happy New Year.
Yes. So, David, tell us your story. When prior to coming to First Steps to Success and hearing about DaniJohnson.com, what was going on in your life?
Well, all kinds of stuff. I was the oldest of 4 boys, born in Chicago and moved to California when I was 5. Grew up out in Livermore, California.
I used to live over there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then moved to San Francisco right out of junior high school. And moving from the burbs into a big city was quite a culture shock. Mm-hmm. And I started smoking pot and hanging out with friends that I now know weren't the best of influences. And then in November of '79, I happened to get arrested in high school on a raid that Dianne Feinstein, then-time mayor, had done on all the high schools. And I sold 5 joints to an undercover cop, so I was a big time mayor. And having just turned 18, I spent the night in jail. So, my mom was really good at she was pretty good at PR, and she knew a lot of people, and she found a great drug lawyer and got me off on possession. So,
oh my gosh,
that was kind of my first
wow,
go around.
Wow.
And then my dad was an alcoholic, and my mom was a workaholic, so she had to make up for what my dad didn't do. Mm-hmm. And my dad was he was an alcoholic, but he wasn't a rageaholic. He wasn't an angry. Mm-hmm. He was more of a happy, making fun of people, embarrassing type of drunk.
Right.
But, still, nonetheless, there was still, not always being there for us. Mm-hmm. And then my mom had gotten sick and passed away from pancreatic cancer at 41, 1981. And then I had a brother that was killed in a pipe bomb accident a week later. So we had a little stretch of not so good, not know how to handle life.
Wow.
At that point. I was 19 at the time and out on my own, but my coping mechanism was medicating. And I loved to drink beer, but I didn't really like to get drunk. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to be an alcoholic like my dad was. So then I found cocaine. Wow. And from doing cocaine, I was able to drink all the beer that I wanted to and not feel the effects of being drunk.
Wow.
So it was quite a little time in my life.
You know what I find to be so interesting, David, is that because I grew up in a household of drug addicts, right? Mm-hmm. And my the extended family were mostly all alcoholics or drug addicts. It was one or the other. What I find to be so interesting is I remember hearing my stepdad say things like, well, I'm not a drunk, I'm not like them alcoholics like your grandmother and all. I'm like, he fully judged as he's snorting lines of cocaine. He fully judged the alcoholics in the family. And guess what? The alcoholics in the family were self-righteous because they were not doing cocaine. That is that's the craziest thing to me. It's all the same stuff.
It was total denial. Yeah. I didn't want to do it, but it all continued until I was working in a restaurant for many years. Perfect job for a cokehead. Great money, great hours.
Yeah.
I could sleep all day and go work and then go blow my money at the bar and do drugs all night.
Yeah.
And so I worked in the same restaurant actually for 14 years. And in the late 80s, I was selling real estate as well as working in the restaurant. And eventually drove a cab because the real estate market was crashing. And at least I was getting paid for driving people around. Mm-hmm. And I was a closet user. I functioned very well. Nobody really knew that I had the problem that I had, including myself. Wow. They always knew I didn't have any money. So maybe they did know. And then that all continued until 1994 when I graduated to smoking crack. Ooh. From smoking crack in 3 months, it took me out. I was jobless and homeless and living in my truck. And I was earning money by driving around, picking up cans and bottles and cardboard and recycling it. Wow. I was one of those people that you see with the cardboard stacked really high and filled with cans and bottles, and I was making money to
David, I had no idea. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of people don't. It's not something I'm ashamed of, but it is. It's not something I always go out and broadcast either.
Well, you are right now, which is so inspirational, man.
I'm honored to do it because I hope it'll help somebody.
Yes. Okay. So then, how long ago did you hear about DaniJohnson.com?
2009.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One of my guys from he was in our upline in our home business, and ironically he had never been to see you, but he had passed out a CD, and I really liked what I had heard, and got some audios and was listening to it and logged onto the website, and decided to go to see you live. And I went to August 2010 was my first event.
Wow. So we're talking 9 years ago is when you got a hold of the audio and heard about our website. That's amazing. Okay, so then after you came to First Steps to Success, what happened?
Well, I basically started paying off debt. I hired people. Since coming, I've hired. Before I was struggling. I was a struggling, overworked, underpaid contractor, working 100 hours a week. Wow. Never really had any quality time with my family, and I was drowning in debt. And then after attending your events, it took me a year before I started kicking off the war on debt. But since coming, I have almost tripled the volume of my business. I've hired people, cutting my hours in half, and we paid off almost $80,000 worth of debt.
Oh my gosh!
So it's worth it. And everybody needs a coach, and you're an amazing coach.
Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of you. This is amazing. Okay, so here you have this long drug past, even to the point of homelessness, smoking crack, like the guy with the cardboards in the city that's collecting cans out of trash cans just to survive.
Yep.
And you turned your life around. You managed to get yourself married. You managed to have some kids, right? Yep. But even in that, you still found yourself in a struggle. Now, first of all, the fact that you could even recover, I mean, it's one homeless woman to a homeless guy. I understand that the depths of despair and the self-hate and the fight to just stay alive, the fight not to commit suicide on a daily basis. I understand that level of humiliation and embarrassment and not knowing if it's ever going to change, So you made it past all of that. And then obviously ended up in a construction business, working 100 hours a week. I want you to think about this for a minute, because a lot of people do that, especially men. And today, a lot of women, it's really surprising to me how many females are workaholics. And you mentioned that your mother was a workaholic. I want you to think about this, because we're going to cut to a break here in a minute. I want you to think about what drove you to work 100 hours a week. Do you think that your mother's example had something to do with that? Or what were you either running from or running towards? What was driving you to work 100 hours a week and to still be struggling financially? And I want you to speak to that when we return after the break, because that's a life that can rip up a family and a life. This is Dani Johnson. We'll continue with more right after this.
Does David's story resonate with you? When we come back, he's going to share the one change he made that turned everything around.
The whole story of how I went from homeless to millions is right here in this book, First Steps to Wealth. I'd love to give you a free copy of this book. Just dial 888-757-8880. You can get your free copy of this book. It's like a real book, my friend. You can get an ebook copy for free right now, or if you'd like to pay the shipping to get this $15 book to your house, I'd be happy to send it to you. 888-757-8880. Get your copy of First Steps to Wealth today and begin on a brand new path of some great success.
Did you know you can see Dani Johnson live and in person? Go to DaniJohnson.com and find out about our next live event. First Steps to Success. Register today. Call 866-760-8255 or go to DaniJohnson.com/FSTS.
My name's Derek, and this is my wife, Michelle, and we're the Hollandsheds. We live in Covina, California, about 45 minutes from here, and we're extremely honored to be able to share our story. And when we were approached about it, I was kind of thinking, well, where do I start? Where do we start? But I'm going to start a few years back before there was a Michelle and Derek. Actually, I was actually debt-free, and kind of going along pretty good. And then a funny thing happened. I got married, and I married into debt. And okay, we're going to do fine. We'll pay it off, and life will be good. But a funny thing happened was that didn't seem to happen. As a result, just kind of thinking it's going to happen, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and something always happens, and and the result is debt doesn't get paid. So, it starts becoming like an old friend, and then unfortunately the marriage failed, but I was able to meet Michelle, and we got married, and married into debt again. Only now it's a little bit bigger, but at least the house that I had, this was during the housing boom, so used some of the equity in the house to pay that debt off, and okay, we got a clean state. Let's go forward. And but in our early days in our marriage, we had some difficulty as far as being on the same page financially, and Michelle will share a little bit more about that. And I guess it's a good point for me to hand it over to her.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Like Derek said, honestly, you guys, the first 7 years of our marriage, when I came into our marriage, he paid up my debt all. And I ran our debt up 3 different times in the first 7 years of our marriage, you guys. I would have never imagined being in that spot. Derek didn't trust me. And it finally got to a place where, my gosh, I can't keep doing this. I was pretty much told to come to this event by a good friend of mine, and it was the best thing she could have said to me because it's what I needed. I would have not have come had I not have had that charge and challenge that way. The moment I got here and we saw the war, I saw the war on debt, I said, this is it. This is our ticket. This is what's going to help us go to the next level. This is what's going to help us. You guys, we've since in 33 months, we have paid off over $159,000 worth of debt. We have money in savings. We have $300,000 in assets, income-producing assets. We continue to plug in. I was the first one to come, but immediately afterwards, I told my husband I couldn't wait. I called him. I told him about War on Debt. He immediately said, let's do it. We had some friends that hosted a War on Debt class there right after, and we went to it, and we found $502 worth of excess spending our first month, and we revisited our budget after that, and then we thought we were just broke, living paycheck to paycheck. We were overwhelmed. We felt hopeless. I never would have thought I would lose my husband's trust, and the techniques, the strategies that Dani Johnson teaches you guys helped us save our marriage, our finances, our communication. You guys, we started out with, my favorite product is spiritual equipping, and I know Darren has a favorite product.
We're on debt, and you think?
You guys, we kind of bought things one by one. However, you guys have a great opportunity outside that door, that table out there, where you can buy the whole DJ University curriculum, and you get almost over $1,000 off. So you have either option, but that's a great opportunity for you. Don't let anything stop you guys. There is hope, there is life, and I'm very grateful and honored to be here. So without further delay, you guys help us welcome back America's favorite millionaire and our mentor and coach, Dani Johnson.
The way you look at things is about to change. And now, back to the Dani Johnson Show.
So there you are. You managed to break free from homelessness, being destitute, digging through trash cans for aluminum cans so that you could turn them in for some coin. You're smoking meth, snorting lines, drinking way too much beer. Your life has just pretty well ended, or at least you wished it would. That's kind of where David Cooke found himself. He's joining me now for the second part of his story, that he managed to get himself out of that place, and nearly 10 years ago heard about the website DaniJohnson.com. 8 years ago, he plugged into First Steps to Success. He's paid off $80,000 worth of debt. He was able to cut his hours in half. He was working 100 hours a week, obviously not being there as a father or a husband, either running from something or running towards something. So oftentimes when people have backgrounds like David Cooke's and mine, we allow things to drive us in a direction that is not healthy. Even though we want to have a great life, we have a tendency of self-sabotaging, doing basically what society has told us to become successful, right? Make more money, buy nice things, live in a big house. Never really telling us the real price that people pay when they chase those things. David Cooke, welcome back. David, I asked you a question before we cut to that last break about what was it that drove you, or what were you running from to be working 100 hours a week? And did your mom's example have a play in that kind of a lifestyle?
Well, that's a pretty deep question. I've never really even had to think about that. So you always put a different perspective on things, Dani. I think my mom's work ethic did influence that. Mm-hmm. I'm 22 years sober now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've 15 years in my own business, and just not knowing, how to run a business and how to do it properly. A lot of the contractors start out, they get out there working and they think they can go out there on their own, and some make it and some don't. And I'm 15 years in business now on my own. And I think a lot of my long hours was just, that's what I had to do to get it done.
Or at least that's what you thought you had to do.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
I didn't know I was afraid to hire people.
Yep.
I was afraid, I'm a Ruby Emerald, and if it's going to be, it's up to me.
Yep.
I get tired of, I got tired of having to go. I hired people a few times and they were complete failures, and I had to go fix everything they did. So I just said, well, this isn't working. I'll just do it myself.
Yep. So you did not possess the skill of being able to recruit and manage a good team of people and training those people up to be able to represent the brand of construction in which you were promoting out there in the marketplace.
Exactly.
So when you came to First Steps to Success, you learned those specific skills.
Right.
So how to recruit talented people, how to face your fears, right? How to face the fears of recruiting the wrong people, or just even some basic business development skills that you learned. Obviously, what you said was you cut back your hours down to 50 hours a week instead of 100. How did that change the marriage and your life with your kids?
Well, the kids are, my marriage is awesome now. The kids are grown, and they've kind of been out of the house for quite a while. But still, I've been much more present. And even as recently as, November 17th of this year, this whole 2017 was a very good year for me. A lot of time secret implementation. One of my goals, I leased a design studio finally after working out of my house for 15 years. Mm-hmm. That's what you're looking at right now in the background. It's nice. My out of the home, which has clients are coming to me now instead of me going to them. And it's really helped separate work from business, because that was a huge struggle too at the office. I always go sit at the computer and I would do stuff and I would ignore my wife. And now we actually spend evenings together. We have 2-3 date nights a week. Nice. And it's changed.
That's amazing. What do you say, David, to that guy who's working 100 hours a week, that's ignoring his wife and struggling with fear and not knowing how to really build a business. What do you say to that guy that's sitting on his couch right now watching today's program, or he's in his car listening to this on the radio?
Get registered for First Steps in San Diego. You won't regret it. It'll be worth every minute and every red cent, and the people you're going to meet and the relationships that you will build and the dynamics of your life that will change will be unlike anything you've ever experienced.
Wow. So that's First Steps to Success, January 19th, 20th, and 21st. This is your opportunity right this minute to get yourself registered. If you go to the website, DaniJohnson.com, that's DANI Johnson.com, you'll find out how to get yourself registered right there. If there's any seats left, friend, I mean, honestly, there's only so many seats that are available. David found himself inside the same exact training seminar. David, how many events have you come to?
31, 32.
Wow.
Like that.
Why do you keep coming back?
Because it works, and everybody needs a coach, and I get tired of hanging out with the 98% world out there, and I need to go back and hang with like-minded people and get regrouped and go at it again.
What is one thing?
I look at it as when I was going to my Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Alcoholism is a disease, and I go to the meetings because it was filled with people that understand me.
Yes.
And now I go to your events because they're rooms that are filled with people that understand me and where I go.
Wow.
I want to achieve.
Wow, I got tears in my eyes on that one, because I think, honestly, the 98% who ends up dead or dead broke at the age of 65, depending on their family, friends, and federal government, is also a disease. It's a disease that happens in the mind. We've all been programmed to be broke. That's the facts. All we have to do is look at the statistics. We've been programmed to die at 65 or to die broke at 65. It literally is like a disease. And it is going to take a supportive community, just as what David found at First Steps to Success. It's going to take a supportive community to help pull you out of that disease of 98% who's going to work hard their whole lives, maybe even work like David did 100 hours a week, only to end up broke, only to end up with a crazy amount of debt, only to end up ignoring his wife, only to end up not living the life that he wants to. He turned his life around with a pivotal experience called First Steps to Success. There's no excuse. David, were you in a position where you could afford to leave your business and afford financially to come to your first steps?
Not really. It was like I had debt. I needed to pay. I couldn't give because I had debt. I couldn't help others because I had debt. I couldn't invest because I had debt, and I certainly couldn't go to seminars because I had debt.
Yep.
So I learned all these different skills that I can do all three of those things. I can pay off debt. I can give. I can build wealth. I have 2 investment properties now, and we're debt free except for our mortgage. So.
That's amazing.
I can do it. Anybody can do it.
That's right. So, I mean, you were working 100 hours a week. How in the world could you have taken any time off to come? So that was an excuse you had. You didn't have the money to come. That was an excuse that you had. You had debt. That was an excuse you already had. You already were not spending enough time with your wife. So that was another excuse that you had not to come to that first event, let alone to come to 31 of those events. So bottom line is that the pivotal experience that you will go through at First Step Success in San Diego and the supportive community that you will meet is going to propel you into the success you desire for 2018. This is Dani Johnson. We'll continue with more after this.
Don't go away. The next segment might just change your life. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
Imagine living in a decrepit, unsafe hovel made of waste material on top of old mining tunnels that could explode and sink your home at any moment. Imagine no water to drink, no safe place to raise your children, no food for your starving baby. Imagine that your kids can't learn to read because they have to work to support the family instead of going to school. Could you imagine living in that kind of fear and hopelessness? This is exactly what families are dealing with in the poverty-stricken village of Santa Pancha, Nicaragua. These families can barely meet their basic food, water, and housing needs. We are transforming that village. Be a part of this miracle. I want you to go to the website now and learn how you can help. Go to kingsransom.org and click on Santa Pancha. There you can join with other warriors against poverty and help bring a miraculous transformation to Santa Pancha. That's kingsransom.org, kingsransom.org.
More resources, more training, more results. The DaniJohnson.com Insider Membership is your ultimate success shortcut. Get exclusive access to reports, videos, audios, ebooks, cheat sheets, and other training for your personal and professional life. This is truly DaniJohnson.com's best kept secret. Become an Insider member today and get on the fast track to success. Helping you become all you were meant to be. And now, back to the Dani Johnson Show.
Well, there you have it. Come on. If you were not inspired with these two men who came from the backgrounds of where they came from, they beat the odds. They socked the statistics in the face. They kicked those statistics in the stomach. Are you hearing me? They both came from backgrounds where they're not supposed to be successful, and yet they overcame, and yet they humbled themselves, and yet they found the money even though they didn't have the money. They found the time even though they didn't have the time. They both didn't have great relationships at home, and yet they wanted more out of life, and they did not settle for what society told them success was supposed to be. They did not settle for status quo. They wanted it all. And they have gotten it. Freedom from debt, able to make investments to create wealth for their future, restoring relationships. Come on, doing what they love. Friend, why not you? Why not you? It's your turn and it's your time. And if you weren't inspired by those two gentlemen, you must be dead. Seriously, grab a mirror, put it underneath your nose, see if there's anything fogging it up. Because I don't know how you could not be inspired by what these two men have been through, what they've overcome, and the kind of success they've designed for themselves. They're living their life by design and not by default. They're no longer a slave to the master of debt. They are no longer even a slave to the master of success. They defined it for themselves and they got it. What about you? Listen, if you enjoyed today's program, do this. Share it right now on your social media. Share it on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Maybe even grab the URL off of our website, DaniJohnson.com, where you can grab this show. Today's show is on the website. You can grab, copy, and paste it and text it to somebody. Even email it to somebody. Together, we can make a difference in changing lives. Together, we can make a difference in healing marriages. Together, we can make a difference of helping people pay off their debt, grow their incomes, cutting their hours back. Both Tony and David cut their hours back using our system called Time Secrets. You and I can together help families heal. I can't do it by myself. We can't do it by ourselves here on this team. We need you. And all we need you to do is send people to DaniJohnson.com and let them experience these kinds of testimonials. Let them experience the content. Let them experience the books. Let them experience the live event, First Steps to Success in San Diego, 19th, 20th, and 21st of January. Do not say, my friend, oh, I'll wait till she comes to Florida. No. I'll wait till she comes to Chicago. No. I'll wait till she comes to Kansas. I'm never coming to Kansas. Listen to me, friend. We're going to be in San Diego. Your life depends on you being there in San Diego. Bring your spouse, bring your children that are old enough to be able to pay attention to the content and watch the entire family change. This is Dani Johnson. We'll talk to you tomorrow. God bless.
If this episode was an encouragement to you, go to DaniJohnson.com and share it with your friends now. You never know who else needs to hear it. This has been The Dani Johnson Show. Join us every weekday at 7 a.m. for more insights that will help you get to the life you've always wanted.